Well, this is completely unexpected. I had no idea that in the closing days of 2025, I'd be doing another anamorphic lens review, this time with the Sirui Saturn series of lenses, but here we are. So the reason why this is so unexpected is because I really wasn't on the market for another set of anamorphic lenses. However, a dear friend of mine has fallen on hard times. He's going through a rough patch and he needed to offload a little bit of gear, and I agreed to purchase these from him used. I figured what the heck, we could do a fun review of them and see what they're all about. So I think a new review of these lenses is actually pretty well timed right now because they just recently went under a deep discount. For a long time, these lenses were about $1,000 a piece, maybe a little bit less than that if you bought the full set together. But now they're all the way down to like $450 a piece. Which is crazy. So I think there's going to be a lot of renewed interest in these lenses. A lot of new people that weren't interested before, coming around to take a look at these, try to find out what they're all about. So if you've watched my channel, you probably know that I like to bring you reviews from actual productions. Unfortunately, these lenses just kind of dropped into my lap, and all the projects I have coming up right now, we've already selected our camera systems and our lens systems and all that for those. So I did the next best thing. I took these lenses out for a night on the town. In this case, we took them to Disney Springs. We started at around sunset, trying to get some golden hour stuff, and we rolled right on into the night. Now, Disney Springs has a lot of lights going on. It's a very well lit area with a lot of variety, so we could walk around and find cool pockets of light and all that kind of stuff. Of course we weren't lighting, we're just shooting what's available there, but there's so much around. You can always find like a cool little area, a cool little pocket of light, position somebody, get some cool shots, and I think that I can find enough variety there to really show you how these lenses perform. It's just a really great place to try to get that done. Do I look like I'm reasonably in focus?
Yeah, I think you're reasonably in focus.
All right, so we're here, and I brought the 35, the 50, and the 75mm lenses. I'm on the 75 right now, and we're gonna run around and try to get some cool stuff and see how these things perform, so let's get into it. I shot with all three lenses. Now the set does consist of a 35, a 50, and a 75mm lens. So I kind of divided my time among those, and I think I got some really cool footage to show you. So with that, I'm going to start with the two major downsides that I found with these lenses. One of them is really just kind of my personal taste, and the other one is something that I think really does hold them back. So the first one is the size. These things are small and lightweight, which is going to be a major selling point for a lot of people that choose to buy these. A lot of people are going to gravitate towards that. People that want to throw these on gimbals, they want to run around with a full set in their bag with mirrorless cameras. It's going to be great for them. However, for me, I do gravitate towards larger rigs. It's easier to clamp on a matte box to a larger lens, rig focus motors, smooth out handheld work, that sort of thing. So for me, I would have much rather probably purchased the Venus series of lenses, which is kind of like the big brother to these. It's about the, they're not really an upgrade. In fact, they hold some optical flaws that these don't. But I would have dealt with that to have the beefier lens.
How's it going? I'm on your big camera. I'm big.
Oh, he thinks that's big, does he? But like I said, that one comes down to just my personal taste and the type of production that I do. The other downside of these lenses is not just my personal opinion, is I think what really holds them back, and that is the mount selection that these lenses come in. These lenses here are Sony E mount, and it's not a changeable lens mount. Like, you really are shoehorned in. I can really only use these lenses on Sony E mount systems, mirrorless cameras, and as you know, that is not a lens format that's easily adaptable to other camera systems. I would have much rather purchased a set of lenses that came in at PL mount, something that I can take across multiple camera systems. You're shooting on Blackmagic Pixis one week, and then a bigger project next week with an RE or a Red or something like that. And these lenses, you just can't take them with you through that type of situation, through different projects. These really just are shoehorned into the Sony ecosystem, or if you buy these for Canon RF or something like that, it's not a system that you can change the lens mounts on. So when I'm making that sort of an investment, and all my other cinema lenses are all PL mount lenses, and I can pretty much attach them to any camera system I want. I can take them across the full spectrum, Blackmagic, RE, Red, Sony, any of that stuff, Fuji, it doesn't matter, I can take them with me. That's not the case with these lenses, and for me, that's the biggest drawback, and the reason why I never really considered buying these before. Let's talk about the things I did like with these lenses. And actually, there's a lot I do like about them. For instance, the image is great. The sharpness performance is really, really good. And, I'm used to the 2x anamorphics, which, have to de-squeeze, a little bit more than these. And I think the more you de-squeeze an image, the more you might give up in the way of sharpness and things like that. These being a 1.6x anamorphic lens don't have to be de-squeezed quite as much as that. And I think that lends them to be a little bit sharper than maybe a 2x, and maybe less than a 1.3. But I think 1.6 is a really good place to be, especially for these mirrorless cameras. 2x is a little bit too crazy for these mirrorless cameras, especially ones that don't shoot open gate. You just end up cropping a whole bunch off the sides. But yeah, I think with these, it's the 1.6 is really, really a good place to be. You do get a little bit of pin cushion distortion. Now, I would have rather seen barrel distortion. But it didn't really come into play when I was shooting. It wasn't something that I noticed or that was really detracting from the look of these lenses for me. And and I didn't shoot people up against a brick wall with a lot of straight lines where it would have been really obvious. In the high contrast environment with a lot of depth where we were shooting out in the real world, you just don't see it. I felt like I would have to look for it to see that pin cushion distortion. Of course, there's some situations where it would be very obvious. I didn't find myself in those situations in this case, and I don't know that I would a whole lot. I rarely like to shoot people up against walls or in places like that. I really like to create shots with a lot of depth. So I don't know if I would worry about that too much, especially when dealing with lenses at this price point. One thing that I would normally consider a flaw, I think is actually a benefit on these lenses, and that's the short focus throw. For people that are using these lenses, I think it's going to be a lot more run and gun people. A lot of people that are just shooting maybe on one-man band situations, they're just pulling focus off the barrel, and having a short focus throw is going to help them do that. Normally, for myself and the type of work that I do, yes, I would like to have a big, long focus throw, 270 degrees or more, really accurate focus points when working with a focus puller and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if these lenses are really being used in that capacity all that much. I'm sure some people are, and they can deal with that. If you're using an electronic focus motor, you can play with the exponent in there and change the way the dial operates and get by with these shorter focus throw lenses. But yeah, I think the people that are using these is probably just fine. They're gonna probably benefit from having that shorter focus throw because they're probably gonna be focusing themselves just right off the barrel, or maybe with a small follow focus mounted to the side of the lens. When you get back into your editing software and you're looking at this footage and you de-squeeze it, it does give you that anamorphic look, I have to say. You get that nice wide field of view, you're getting your nice oval bokeh, you're getting, a little bit of character and all that kind of thing. So being able to do that on these lightweight lenses on a Sony mirrorless camera, run around and get that kind of a look, that's really only something that, has been available to people for, maybe the last 4 or 5 years. Before that, trying to shoot anything anamorphic, it would have been, you're messing around with vintage adapters or spending tons of money on big lenses, and you wouldn't have been doing that, with a Sony mirrorless camera. So, the fact that this is available to us now to get images like this is pretty amazing. And, now, like I said, these lenses are on such a deep discount. The full set you can get for $1,500. I mean, $1,500 for a full set of anamorphic lenses that you can fit into a backpack. Now, I put these in my bag and carry them all over Disney Springs, and even though I said, I gravitate towards the heavier rigs, I have to say, I did enjoy being able to throw 3 anamorphic lenses into a bag with a Sony A7sIII and a monitor, and walls through security. They took a quick look through my bag and saw, I had a couple cameras and went on through. It didn't look like I was going on to a big production. But I think that's where these lenses are cool to have, and why I'm kind of happy to have them now is because I can throw 3 anamorphic lenses and a camera in a bag and really feel like I'm not carrying that much stuff around and still go out and get that anamorphic look. I mean, that's really cool. So if you're wondering if you should go out and pick up a set of these lenses now that they're on this deep discount, well, I guess it kind of just depends where you are in your career and what you're doing. I think at the price point, like I said, all 3 lenses for less than $1,500, maybe it is worth it for you to pick these up, even knowing that you're not going to take these lenses, throughout your entire career as a cinematographer. maybe you're in that place where, you know, you really are just kind of shooting on small Sony mirrorless cameras, which is a great place to be. And you want to start incorporating in some anamorphic stuff, get some experience with anamorphics or adding some anamorphic footage to your reel, things like that. It might be worth it for you to snag a set of these for, like I said, less than $1,500. Could be worth it. So hopefully you found this review helpful. Like I've said in all my other reviews, this isn't a video made from the top of a mountain or anything like that. I'm just a fellow climber like you. If we stick together and we work hard, hopefully we'll see each other at the top.